Hi, I'm Leigh Hall. I'm an Associate Professor of Literacy Studies at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the relationship between struggling readers and disciplinary literacy. Before we get in too deep, I want to talk to you a little bit about how I understand struggling readers. For me, these are the students that are typically performing below grade level in reading. They often have difficulty comprehending the text that you ask them to read in school, and they may exhibit very limited motivation and engagement when asked to read text or even write them. However, that doesn't mean that they don't want to improve and that they don't want to learn and that they don't want to be better readers. So what I want to help you with today is understanding how you can work with these students in your class so that they can engage in the disciplinary literacy instruction that you're presenting them with, so they can improve their motivation and engagement, and so that they can actually start to contribute to the literacy practices that you have going on in your everyday classroom life. Now, before we get into how do you actually do that in your instruction, I want to say a little bit about, is disciplinary literacy instruction really appropriate for struggling readers? Because one of the things that you might be questioning right now is if you've got kids that currently can't read or are having great difficulties reading from a textbook or having great difficulties writing the kinds of things that you're currently doing in your classroom, then you might think that disciplinary literacy instruction is going to be too complex to engage them in. And I'm not going to tell you that it's not going to be challenging. It can present challenges, but what I am going to tell you is that it will present challenges for all your students who have a range of reading and writing abilities. It's just that these challenges are going to manifest differently. And if you think back to the earlier talk that you saw with Timothy Shanahan, where he presented the three different tiers of literacy instruction and literacy development, think about that second tier where he had content area literacy instruction embedded with the intermediate literacy abilities. What you're going to be doing really is going back and forth between helping students develop those intermediate literacy skills that they need to develop while you're also helping them develop disciplinary literacy instruction. Now, how do you go about doing this then? Well, in my own research, I've come across three strategies that seem to work really well. And these are things that you can do almost right out the door with very little resources, without really having to change a lot that you already probably do in your instruction. These you can do on a Monday morning. So the first thing that I like to have students do is set goals. I like to ask students, okay, this year in my class, how do you want to improve as a reader? How do you want to improve as a writer? And get their input. Now, in my experience, students aren't going to say things that are going to be very specific or that are necessarily going to look like they apply to disciplinary literacy instruction right off the bat. They're going to say some pretty generic things to you. They're going to say things like, I really want to learn harder words. I want to improve my vocabulary. Or they're going to say things like, I wish I could read more difficult texts. And we want to use that information in your instruction. So when you're teaching students how to read discipline-specific texts, bring that up. Talk to them about how what you're doing that day connects to the goals that they have set for themselves so that they can see how this is immediately influencing how they want to improve as readers. And this will engage your struggling readers because they will see an immediate connection to things that are important to them. The second thing that I found is very helpful to do with all your students, and particularly with struggling readers, is to give them choice in what they read. Now, when I say give them choice, it's not a free-for-all. It's not always letting the students pick whatever they want to read whenever they want to read it. But it's getting the students an opportunity to provide you with input. So if you have a struggling reader in your class who's very knowledgeable about the Civil War, for example, letting them provide you with information about the kinds of texts that you might want to include or recommend can help them feel like, well, it will show them that they have a very prominent place in your classroom and that they have something to contribute when maybe they're not used to having something to contribute before. And then the third thing that I would suggest is to make your inquiry projects as authentic as possible. And by authentic, I mean try to show the students how what they're doing connects and can be engaged with real experiences beyond school. So one way to think about this in the context of history, if you've studied slavery or if you're going to, talk to the local history museum and find out if your students can actually write something that can be displayed in the museum. This could manifest as an exhibit. It could manifest as students writing a pamphlet on one or more topics that would then be available for visitors to read or even take home with them. And this shows the students how the work that they're doing is actually contributing to the knowledge development, not just of the discipline, but of the community that they reside in.